Hello, my friends. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. I'm Lou Kilgore. I'm pastor here at the High Mountain Presbyterian Church. Our physical location is in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. But coming out of this physical location, we travel through the graces of YouTube and Facebook and Ustream. We are anywhere you want us to be. If you're a subscriber to the channel, I'm grateful. If you're not, you can subscribe by going to the YouTube channel or Facebook and hitting subscribe, or choose to follow us. And that way, every time I am broadcasting, I don't know what else to call it, that's old school, but you can get a reminder that will say, you know, Pastor Lou is online and recording now. So I think I just shut off my music. Anyway, so hello, how are you today? How are you? How are you doing in your journey in Lent? 16 days into Lent, and we've been talking about steps, rungs on the ladder, if you will. I think the steps in Lent are up. I'm not sure. Maybe there are steps that go down, taking us into the green valleys and the places of pasture that the Lord shepherds us to. I don't know. However you imagine that metaphor working for you, I'm happy to be on a journey with you one way or the other, even if just today is one day in the journey and you're here and you're listening. The purpose of this pastor's chat, originally at the suggestion of a church member, I started doing this because in some ways it was the power of the unknown with the arrival of the pandemic and shutting down of everything else we normally do. All of the ways. We had in-person Bible studies, we had committee meetings, we had gatherings for singing and hymn praying and all the rest of that. We've had all the comings and goings that are normally a part of an active church community, and all that got shut off. And so this one very insightful church member said, you know, you ought to just go online every day and talk to us, talk to the church. And so I devised this pastor's chat. I've enjoyed it, especially during special seasons like this season of Lent. I don't know. I get interaction with people that say it's helpful, and so I'm hoping that it is. I know there's a regular core of you that come back, sometimes at 2 o'clock, sometimes around supper time, and you just get this regular check-in. How are you doing? And even if you're not answering it, I'm sure by what you see and what you hear, you can get a sense of how I'm doing. And so far, by God's grace, I'm doing just fine. And looking forward to, with some, energy of anxiety and anticipation, working out a hybrid version of coming back together as the vaccines are out there and the risk to our health goes down. We will move to a better way, perhaps, at least an alternative way, something alongside, but we will continue to do these new avenues of reaching out beyond the limits of property and buildings into your homes as you choose to have me there. Someone asked me if I was going to continue to do the pastor's chats into the return after the time of separation, and I think I will. One thing I learned from my technician yesterday is I might actually be able to move my chairs back into my office, and we'll actually do our streaming for the pastor's chat from within inside a pastor's office. I don't know. I think that's exciting. It does structure my day. Believe me, it does. When you have an appointment every day at 2 o'clock, and I also try to take some time in preparation to think about what I might share in this time. So it's a discipline for me. As I have reported to you along the way, I am surprised that it is a discipline that produces a sense of joy for me, a sense of, contentment. So much of the work of a pastor is uncharted. You don't know. You get to your office, there'll be a phone call, there'll be a hospital visit, something that you have to go and do, a problem you have to solve. I'm also the director of our ministry for preschool and childcare, and because I'm the director, what happens in my day is often in flux. But the 2 o'clock structure has provided for me a kind of an anchor, a kind of a navigational site. So I like it. And I also like that I'm not here alone, that some of you have chosen to, tune in and mark your journey along with this. And I do appreciate that. The emails that you send, the jokes you send me, the comments, the responses, all appreciated. So keep those cards and letters coming. So we have completed the 12 steps of the 12-step program. And in thinking about today, I felt like I wanted to acknowledge something. I've been emphasizing that at least in the Lenten process, I don't know, I guess the discipleship works best when it's not you alone. There it is. Walking with Christ, walking with Jesus, walking with God is best. And what I mean by best is it is recommended by Jesus himself, by the history of the church, by the whole of what the experience of walking in discipleship means. It's best if you can, in some way or another, include another human being with you in the process. I think that's why gatherings, what we call worship gatherings, are important, because then others are along the way. We know we're on a journey with others. Sometimes church provides an opportunity where you have someone like-minded, someone that you trust. But I'm going to tell you, my feeling is that's not often the case in church. In church you have acquaintances and people who they get to know you, you're familiar with, and it feels good. But if you want to go the next step and you want to engage in, I'll just call it deep conversations with someone about yourself or about your faith, church is not actually, for some reason, a place where that happens automatically. In fact, sometimes I think church is a kind of rehearsal of socialization that does not include that. So as I've been sharing in these pastor chats, when you think about the journey towards sobriety or serenity, the importance of a person with you, someone. Now, having said that, I don't want to offer to you the idea that I think that's easy to do. I do not think that's easy to do. I've told you that in my life, for the past 20 years, I've had, as a companion to my life in church and as a pastor, I've had what I call an accountability group. And because of my work is unique and crossing over, I'm not just a pastor, I'm also a person trying to make my way in faith as well. I find my accountability groups are best when they're clergy as well. I like it when they're not clergy in my own denomination, when they're not in my backyard. They're there, they're real, and the group that I'm a part of, you could call it an encounter group that in the language of the 60s and the 70s, right? Some place where you can do some interaction. We have a supervisor who's a trained clinical pastoral educator. We together, the 6 of us, pay a small fee, and we meet 2 times a month. That helps me. That helps me because there I can talk with people I can trust. They don't really interact anywhere else in my life, and so I don't have to worry about that. What is said there stays there, because it doesn't matter. The people in that group don't know me outside the group. And that's really good for my journey. It's not complete. It's not complete. And some of what we've talked about in, this journey of Lent, which is taking some inventory of your own imperfections, the book calls them, and then owning them to yourself, and then working with someone else to disclose them, and then inviting help from that person as you pray and meditate and ask God to help you to make some progress along the way. You're not trying to earn God's approval. I think in my life, that's the one thing that I can't quite figure out how it happened. I grew up in a small sort of, I don't know how to categorize, evangelical, charismatic, God is really real and personal relationship kind of church. That was my tradition. And we talked all the time about the grace of God. That grace of God was emphasized over and over and over again. I've heard about God's grace and love and mercy, God's mercy. Oh my goodness, it's all, joy because of God's mercy and grace, and songs of joy, and sometimes very expressive songs of joy because God loves me and all the rest of that. But how is it possible that I grew up in that context of talking about God's grace and never really being able to trust that, the song "Just As I Am" without one plea, that still never percolated through to me. In fact, the one accountability group I was in 10 years ago, the one Lutheran pastor in there said, you grew up in a community where grace and mercy were talked about, but you don't really, in your life, as you share your story, you don't seem really to be able to apply the power of mercy and grace to yourself. You seem labored. And in the middle of that, at one point, he said to me, you don't have to earn God's love. Now, up here, I knew that. In here, it was becoming very clear as I was sharing my life that that's not how it felt. It's just not. I don't know that I can break it down or that I want to, but I'm just saying it's one of the things that became clear for me is that I talk about mercy and grace, but I will certainly in my pastoral conversations with others, I'm happy to be a channel for mercy and grace and God's forgiveness and overwhelming love and acceptance of us, along with, as my Presbyterian mentor once said, warts and all, everything about that's broken and imperfect about us, God loves and gathers up. But do I believe it? Do I trust it for me? I trust it for others. I do. I know this because I've lived through the experience of, people running into circumstances in their life where other people judge them. I don't have judgment against them. People who have failures and, look, I've had enough failures in my own life. I have enough sense of, wow, I really messed that up. That when people come to me and they're concerned about, what's my standing, I can genuinely tell and act towards them and say, you won't find me standing in judgment of you. You just won't. But it's different when it comes to applying that standard to myself. So the point of all this is to sort of drive home this idea that Christian discipleship, walking with God, is not a Jesus and me kind of thing. It isn't. It can be, and often it begins that way in the heart of the person's heart, but it almost always requires some physical manifestation, some kind of a conversation of deep accountability, someone who can look back at you, hold up a mirror, if you will, and say, I know you think that you are this kind of person, but you don't come across that way, and it's not a judgment, it's just trying to give you the information that you can't get on your own. And that's because Lent is a time of introspection. It is. And if it's a journey worthwhile, you know, in Epiphany, we were exploring for discoveries out here in the world about God and about whatever. And in Lent, we're trying to, through the eyes of grace, to see ourselves. And so I'm just going to say that the chat today reinforces that. Maybe when the pandemic is all over, maybe you'll invite me to come to your house and have the pastor come. I'm happy to be that kind of talk along with you person. Maybe you'll come into my office for a chat and fill in some of the blanks for where you've gone in this time. Maybe it'll be in June, right? By the way, since we're talking about dates and all the rest of that, I just want to say, I was looking at the calendar yesterday and I realized on March 1st, which now was a couple days ago, was my 10th anniversary of being a pastor in this community. I've been here for 10 years. I preached my first sermon here in this building 10 years ago on March 1st. I can't believe how much time has gone by, and it has been a good 10 years, a really good 10 years. And every year has its particularly unique and outstanding things. I think back about where we've been together. And some of you haven't been here all this time. Some of you are brand new. That's okay. That's the way life works. It's just exciting to me to see, 10 years, a discipline in the same direction. And when I came in, my key still works in the door. So I'm happy and still feel loved and supported in light of this community. And that, too, is very important to me. And I thank God for that. I thank God for the 10 years past, and thank God for today, and for the moments we've just had to think and talk together. I hope it's helpful to you. I hope it strengthens your faith. I hope it gives you a sense of being able to touch the untouchable and see the unseeable and know the unknowable. And in that, our faith will grow. Thank you, my friends. God bless you, and I will talk to you tomorrow on Friday, which, by the way, I'm getting my second shot. So, I don't know, don't look for me too much around Friday evening and Saturday morning, but get my second Pfizer shot, and I'm very excited about it. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow.